I
Mm-hmm.
was, you know, screaming into a pillow and saying, a couple times a week, I can't deal with this. I mean, you just get consumed by the sound and you just focus
Yeah.
on it all the time. But I don't fear it anymore. I have days of complete silence. Without these tools, I'm sure it would have been very, very different for me because it's just, hard to cope sometimes.
It's Joey Remenyi from seekingbalance.com.au. I'm a vestibular audiologist and a neuroplasticity therapist, and I have the great privilege of meeting so many people around the world who are working through and healing complex and chronic forms of vertigo, dizziness, or tinnitus. And these are often the invisible sensations and symptoms that largely the medical world has to say, like, we're not sure what there's anything more we can do. You've got to go and live with it or deal with it. Whereas I help people to understand how their neurons communicate and how to use neuroplasticity to actually change their sensations, change the way their senses are being interpreted by the brain, and actually move into a genuine place of healing. And so I feel like I get the kind of lucky end of the spectrum. I feel a little bit for the doctors who are having to say, sorry, there's nothing we can do. And today we are speaking to Randy from the US. And I love sharing stories, but in particular, Randy, I do love meeting men because it's often less men that volunteer. So thank you so much and welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Beautiful. So Randy comes from our community of tinnitus experiences. I won't call it suffering. And in the Rocksteady program and Rocksteady community, I think it's roughly 20% of people have only tinnitus. Most people have vertigo and tinnitus, and then a few people have only vertigo. So you're representing a chunk of people actually, Randy, and I'm sure they're out there just going, so what happened? Did you heal it? Did you get through it? What was it like? So do you want to talk us through what you were feeling when you stumbled across Rocksteady, and then we'll take it from there?
Sure. So my history with tinnitus actually goes back a fairly long way. I first got it like 15 years ago or 16 years ago in 2004. But it was odd, it was a kind of a curiosity. I went to the audiologist. They did some tests to make sure that there wasn't anything seriously wrong, and they sent me on my way. And so for 15 years, it was there. I noticed it. But if you had ever asked me to like make a list of the top 10 problems or issues I had in my life, it probably wouldn't have been on there. I tried a few things along the way. I saw some apps when smartphones came out, and I tried some, music masking and some other things, and thought, I'll always try to figure out a way to deal with this, but it just never was an issue. And then in early 2019, had a lot of stuff going on in my life. My brother died unexpectedly, and shortly thereafter, my mother died. She was 88, and it wasn't really a surprise or anything, but a lot of stress from that and at work. And then one night I was on a business trip, and I woke up in the middle of the night. My ear was clogged, and the tinnitus was extremely loud, and it just suddenly freaked me out. It was 2 in the morning. I kind of had a panic attack, which I had never had before. I went for a few days. I got back home. I thought, okay, the ear's unclogging. Maybe it's getting better, but the tinnitus didn't go away. Then I got anxiety off and on attacks, which I had never had before. I couldn't sleep. And I was suddenly just like consumed by this. And the volume of the tinnitus was very loud. So it completely changed about a year ago. I went through all the medical tests that you hear everybody talks about. I went to the ENT. My hearing was the same as it had been 15 years ago, so I knew it wasn't that.
Yeah.
They gave me some stuff to try to deal with, seasonal allergies that I have. But they don't like to hear about tinnitus because it's, there's nothing we can do about it. Sorry. So I was frustrated by that. I got a brain scan. There were no tumors or anything, so that made me feel better. But I was just kind of now totally focused and consumed in thinking about every day this sound in my head
Mm-hmm.
And, I managed by myself to get through the anxiety attacks. The insomnia came and went, but I kind of got a little bit better. And I did talk to one psychologist as part of a kind of a tinnitus management program that I went through, that I didn't get to spend much time with him, but he did, say that, hey, as soon as you don't care about it anymore, it'll go away. So it kind of put me on that mind-body thought pattern a little bit. So I got better, but felt like I was still kind of stuck.
Yeah.
So that's when I stumbled across. No, go ahead.
It's like the golden plateau. We get to this place and then we feel
Yes.
the hump.
Right. So it's not my life is over anymore, but I still, you still wake up, you're not looking forward to things and all that.
Mm.
So that's when I stumbled across you on YouTube, and I took the 7-day starter course,
Mm-hmm.
and it seemed like something I wanted to continue. So I signed up for Rocksteady. They make you take the test at the beginning, and my score was 28, and I'm pretty sure my score 4 or 5 months before that would have been much higher than that, but 28 is still not particularly good.
Well, I'll put that into context for people who
Sure.
aren't familiar. It's actually a perceived disability score, and the maximum score is 100. So 28 out of 100 sounds all right, but the way that the test works, that 28 number means that effectively 28% of the time, or if we round that up to 30% of the time, 30% of the time you're feeling a disability. You're feeling frustrated or feeling like in some capacity you can't live the life you want to live, whether that's physically, positionally, moving your head, because when we move our head, it changes the signals in the ears. So functionally, emotionally, and positionally, 28% of the time, you're actually feeling debilitated by the tinnitus. So it's a very disruptive, invisible condition.
Yes.
And that's why we do that questionnaire at the beginning of Rocksteady, because we want to track how am I going emotionally, functionally, and positionally as I start implementing new skills and tools and engaging with neuroplasticity.
Yeah. So, and that describes it very well. It wasn't fear or horrible anxiety anymore, but it was still very consuming in my head. It's been, it was hard to concentrate. You kept thinking about it. Oh, is it louder? Is it softer? And,
Yeah.
will I get to sleep tonight? All that stuff. So that was kind of where I was when I got into Rocksteady. So I started there, and in module 1, it's like, oh, well, these balance exercises, the videos, it seemed, interesting, but my first thought was, it's like, oh, geez, I've got tinnitus. I don't have vertigo. Maybe this isn't necessarily for me, but it didn't take a long time. Well, 2 things. One is the most important thing, I think, along the way to me, it was, I believe, sometime in module 1, I think there was a tinnitus specific audio, and you said, I just want to let you guys know there's nothing wrong with you. You're, the body, you're hearing things, noises that your body makes, and that's normal. I hadn't had that input. You kind of go through the medical community and you feel like, okay, it's not life threatening maybe, but there's still something wrong with you and there's nothing they can do about it, and it's going to keep getting worse. So that kind of that initial message when you said there's nothing wrong was a big uplifting thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I was a little skeptical with the balance exercises because I thought, well, this is probably for those vertigo people and not for us tinnitus people. But what I found when I started that is I realized it's like, I start with like the really easy one, right? Where you just put your feet side by side and you close your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't keep my balance with my eyes closed. I realized I could barely feel my feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that my entire life was like up here above my neck. And I had all this tension in my neck. My jaw was clenched. And it took like a week in module 1, just where I could like get the simplest of all exercises nailed down. And then I moved up to the heel to toe, but you know, it's kind of side by side, and that took a while. And finally I graduated to my favorite exercise, which is heel to toe, but like, you know, directly lined up. And, you know, over time, I could, with my eyes closed, relax, stay balanced. And it's like you feel gravity for the first time in a long time, and you can just feel the senses in your body that you had never felt before because you were so focused up here.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why I really wanted to share Randy's story, because worst case scenario for me anyway is that tinnitus people might engage in the rock steady process but reject it because they're like, no, I don't want to go into my body, I don't have dizziness. When I've got in capital letters the whole way through, this is so important for people with tinnitus. You've got to get back into your body. This is actually not vestibular therapy from a physical therapy vertigo point of view. This is a mind body emotional recentering where you guys, I'm encouraging you to go beyond the sound in the body and actually go into what you feel through your feet, hips, shoulders, spine, etc. Because when we abandon our body, we really lose a lot of our health emotionally and physically. And coming back into the body is often what the tinnitus is calling for, right? The tinnitus is the message. The body is saying something to us. And I don't feel comfortable. I'd love to hear your perspective on this, Randy, because I think it's extremely non-linear and complicated. But I don't feel comfortable with this idea that, you know, stress causes tinnitus or tinnitus causes stress. I really don't think it's that linear. I think the sounds in the body are there, and they're pretty much always there, and the volume's up and down, and our awareness or concentration and focus upon it is up and down throughout our lives. And I think it's a very complex interplay of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual manifestations as we're growing as humans. And that's why I think the medical world gets a bit stumped by it, because it's not simplistic, it's not linear, it's not even directly related to hearing loss, because there's many people with normal hearing and bothersome tinnitus, and there's many people with hearing loss and no tinnitus whatsoever. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I love it that you went through that resistance and frustration of, hang on a minute, I don't have vertigo, what's all this about? And you actually eased into it and you gave it a go. And then, of course, you felt the benefits of getting your mind and body back into that place of relaxation and center. So do you want to speak a little bit more about that? Because I do think it's very important for a lot of the listeners to consider.
Sure. You know, I just didn't realize, you know, I had always in my life, I think, done a very good job of kind of suppressing, you know, any stresses or things that would, you know, cause problems or have to think about too much. I think that probably just caught up with me over time, and you don't realize that you're kind of losing touch with your body and how you feel about things.
Yeah.
And that's where I was kind of stuck, I think, even though I was able to get myself out of the anxiety attack patterns and some of the things that came with the kind of the increased intensity of the tinnitus that hit. I couldn't get any further than that. And it was just that kind of getting back in touch with the body. And the live calls helped a lot, because I think it stressed those things. So kind of being able to listen to those from in the Rock Steady program. I mean, all of the things beyond the balance exercises, which were my favorites, and doing those, you know, 3 or 4 times a day, you know, the tapping, the healing hands, the focus on not trying to get rid of your tinnitus, rather figure out what you want to feel like and focus on that. Those things never would have occurred to me if I was trying to do this by myself. So I'm a firm believer now in the mind-body connection to various aspects of healing and dealing with things. And it just I wouldn't have ever been that way, a year ago
Yeah.
when this hit at all. It would be, there's got to be a pill that I can take that will make this go away or whatever. So, and it's a journey. My score now is a 2. I think the 2 is because I still feel a little frustrated every once in a while. I still, the good news is I have days of complete silence. I mean, it's been 15 years since I had complete
and
silence.
to put it into perspective, 2 out of 100 means 2% of the time I am impacted by the sensation or the tinnitus. So it's extremely normal. I'm pretty sure they consider it normal once you're under 16. So being frustrated 16% of the time, 16 out of 100, is considered the average human dosage of suffering. That's normal. So to be right down at 2 is exceptional. That means you're actually actively feeling the way you want to feel 98% of the time. That's exceptional, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, and I'm sure tinnitus people can relate to this. You have fear you just get consumed by the sound and you just focus on it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to the point when I got through module 6 of, it would come and go, but when it was there, I didn't care. It wasn't affecting me. I wasn't going to, have a bad day at work and have to leave the meeting room and say, I can't deal with this. I mean, seriously, a year ago, I was, screaming into a pillow and saying, a couple times a week, I can't deal with this.
Yeah.
I can't live like this. And so that was all gone. And I got through and got to the point where when it was around, it didn't really bother me. The only thing I'm working on now, and what I did is I went back and I started module 1 over again because, it's like watching a movie for the second time. There's pieces you missed the first time. There's context you have now that you didn't have then. So it's very helpful again. And I'm just I still notice it, off and on during the day. And I kind of like to get by even kind of, and by notice it, I mean it's like if a filling falls out of your tooth, and you spend all day feeling that hole in your tooth, which seems weird, and it's not going to change your life, but you just keep noticing it. And so I'm still working on kind of, getting that aspect of it gone, but I don't fear it anymore. It doesn't change my life.
Can I ask a question on the flip side?
Sure.
First of all, and only share this if you feel comfortable, but what are your desired feelings at the moment if you were to list 1 or 2 of them just for the listeners?
A lot of people say the word calm, and that's what I think of. For me, what I realized was I was feeling a sense of urgency all the time before when you didn't necessarily have to be urgent, right? I mean, my wife would be upset because we'd be in a grocery store line that was moving slowly, but I had really nowhere to be. But I was like, come on. I felt like that guy, that you're late for a meeting and you're waiting for an elevator and you keep pushing on the button, and feeling so urgent. And so that what my desired feeling was to get out of that and just to kind of let life come. And I think
that's really presence, isn't it? That's going, well, here I am. Presence.
No, that's exactly right. That's the other thing. In module 1 with the body scan, it really brought that home as well to be present and kind of just feel where you are and all that stuff. I wasn't that kind of person. It's weird because, I was skeptical about that type of thing. How is this going to help the noise in my head? But, it did. I took the 2 weeks per module. So over 12 weeks, went from 28 to 2. So
I'm just curious, Randy, is there any particular story or turning point you want to share before we wrap up the call? Do you feel like there's any any little moments of clarity you had? I think you said you were listening to one video.
Yeah,
Well,
for me it was when you said it's normal to hear sounds in your body, because again, you kind of get into this, and you know, nothing against the medical profession at all, but they kind of leave you with the thought that, you know, there's nothing wrong that we can find that's going to kill you, but there's something wrong with you. We just can't do anything about it. Sorry.
yeah,
And
can I just say something there though?
yeah,
Literally, we are taught that tinnitus is abnormal. That is in our university education. So
yeah, that's what comes through
it's a
when
mis
at the ENT.
it's a total misrepresentation and misunderstanding, because at the same time, as an audiologist, we're taught, oh sure, the ears generate sound, we can measure them, it's totally healthy and normal, it's in children, it's in perfectly healthy teenagers. The ears do create and emit noise, and neural actual potentials buzzing around the head do create and emit a kind of vibrational noise. If you think about any moving object, even if I'm just to shake my water bottle, or the idle of a car, or the hum of a fridge, or the noise of a washing machine, anything that has moving parts creates a subsequent noise. So it's interesting that through the audiology degree, we're getting both. Part of it's like, oh, what do you do with a tinnitus client? Because they've got issues and that's abnormal, right? But then in another lecture, they're saying, oh, sure, the ears generate totally healthy, normal noise. We don't need to do anything about it. So I think audiologists do get very unique training, but there's no doubt about it, it's abnormalized from all health
Yeah,
professionals and all medical professionals. And I strongly disagree with that. That's my
and
one point of difference.
that message comes through, and that's why when I heard you say that it's normal, you know, it just gives a boost to your thought process, and really open the door
Because it
for
doesn't
the
need a
rest of the
cure.
exercises. Yeah.
And it doesn't need a cure, because your
No.
body's allowed to make noise. Our job is to change our relationship to it so that the brain can ignore it and filter it out. And that is the real secret juice of neuroplasticity. And that's what the Rocksteady process is about, changing our relationship to our body, to what we hear, and to what we feel. Any closing words, Randy?
No, you said it. You said it very well. Don't give up on the idea that you can get through this and heal, or however you want to phrase it. Because you know, I went through for a full year thinking that it wasn't possible, and here I am today, and just grateful for the tools that are out there.
And it's not hocus pocus. It's actually quite methodical and scientific, isn't it?
Oh no, absolutely. And I still enjoy my balance exercises every day.
That's great. I'm so happy for you. And me too. I just love coming back to my yoga, and having a little tiny baby. It's, you've got to make time for it. Otherwise it just slips by and weeks pass and we lose ourselves. So it's so essential. Thank you for the reminders. Thank you for your honesty. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who resonate with that confusion of why go into my body, why these exercises, but there is method behind the madness. And keep trusting, keep believing. Visit seekingbalance.com.au. I'm Joey Remenyi, and it's a bye for now.